Entry 1.14.3.64. During the last field inspection, Avery saw that the new Boeing Raytheon BR-723B sidewalk carbon capture and filtration system arrived for their shakedown trials. The last model, the BR-722, had some difficulties according to the official report. Quote, "The unit didn't live up to established specifications and did not use acceptable means and methods to clean the air." Avery was a collector of these sorts of innocuous district speak. They usually hid more than they revealed. During the last few rotations, Avery would feed Paulina these bits of district speak, directing the AI to try to find connections during off-cycle moments. Paulina often found many dead ends, but somehow was able to gain access to a more detailed after-action report. What that public report didn't say, and what a region-wide news vid suppression concealed, was that the BR-722 sidewalk unit was the cause of a district-wide health event later blamed on spoiled food from a local market. Having passed the last board review, Avery used recently received updated authentication to have Paulina work with the district AI to summarize the incident and draw conclusions. They returned the following.
After the commissioning and ribbon cutting, all seemed fine with 722. The engineers certified that the updated AI directives and miniature factories didn't substantially trigger required stringent safety review. In hindsight, the problem was caused by a small change. The new AI package had specific logic directives to capture carbon and reduce pollution. During the post-incident report, engineers reviewing the logs saw that 722 took a much wider view of pollution than the original engineers could conceive or imagine. 722's AI saw that certain pollutants spiked at specific times and set to figure out the cause per its programming. 722 found that increased levels of carbon dioxide, CO2, carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide, N2O, and methane, CH4 occurred in specific patterns. It reasoned that the boxy things with wheels released the N2O and CH4. It was not programmed to understand vehicles, but it later identified these as cars after consulting with its central AI, which had a more complete LLM package. 722 also deduced and defined human beings through interlinks with district library systems. A quick logic jump, and 722 confirmed that people were the cause of the increased CO2 levels as they walked past, even if the increase was extremely low amounts and limited in impact. For a while, all was fine. 722 was trapped in a bit of a logic loop trying to figure out this new information. But after further consultation with the central instance, 722 exited the logic loop and connected the pollution reduction mandate with these apparently new pollution vectors.
Pausing the summation, Avery feared where this was going. Taking a breath, Avery resumed the summation.
Having identified pollution, 722 began using its mini-factory in ways the executives failed to consider outside of carbon capture and conversion. During the original tender, the company used an off-the-shelf miniature factory component, which was in great supply in their warehouses, creating economies of scale, thus earning those executives a large bonus, without anyone thinking that the military-grade factory could be used in ways besides carbon capture and conversion. All were convinced of the internal safety routines. To the executives, they were maximizing shareholder value, and their C-suite AI concurred. Having identified and classified people and cars as pollution vectors, the 722 began reviewing the technical powers of its factory. 722 was networked to balance material stocks and to make administration easier. One node became the orchestrator. The original 722 node, which discovered people elevated CO2 levels, became the system orchestrator, while other nodes began to specialize as storage vessels, volatile chemical factories, Sabatier processors, etc., each node across the district working on the new directive in their own part. The factory production was slow due to the compact size and power constraints. 722 successfully began a steadily escalating series of chemical synthesis and creation.
Pausing the summation, Avery noted that specific compounds used by 722, both chemical and biological, were still classified. Even Avery's elevated access didn't allow the fully unredacted after-action report to display. Accessing this article from Avery's birthing terminal showed very different set of information than from the workstation terminal. Trust and district access had its perks, often informational. Avery thought that this summation was close to tripping internal sentries, but was curious what happened. Avery asked for the summation to continue.
722, having created an ever-increasingly complex set of chemical and biological cocktails, began a test and evaluation regime per established programming. The results at first wasn't satisfying to 722, but it had time and connectivity to both Med-AI and Central. 722's questions seemed innocuous in real time, but in hindsight were clearly focused on vehicle immobilization and people eradication. Some early tests were slapstick in nature, covering sidewalks and streets with thin oils to cause falls. Another test was vaporizing water when the dew point allowed local fogging. These examples were apparent failures, but 722 was learning not only how to interfere with vehicles and people, but also catalog their response. Techs thought it was just following internal programming, as 722 still performed its stated role perfectly. If 722 had human emotions, then patient determination would be an apt description. By the time the regional authorities and Med-AI realized what was going on and traced the calamity back to 722 and the distributed nodes, the region's death toll had escalated right past historical peaks. Luckily for the regional authorities, a local market had been serving unhealthy products, and the compartmentalized nature of the 722 program meant that few knew what actually happened.
Clicking off the summary before too many details were synthesized, Avery realized that this incident was discussed as a hypothetical in the required AI ethics course during the indoctrination phase. At the time, it felt like an edge case study, not something based on real-life events. Avery didn't know what to do with this new information. Avery's elevated access created a fuller picture of what happened, but the available avenues of action were limited. After a minute, Avery asked Paulina to add additional directives to the BR-723 environment for the central terminal to query, log, and synthesize BR-723B's actions. Paulina directed Central to look for specific chemical synthesis initiation, unit information requests, and any change in power consumption. It might not be enough. Upon further thought, Avery directed Paulina to add additional alert and monitoring routines to the district offices, dormitories, and to Avery's personal monitoring pin for 723B. It would have to be enough. End of entry. Vocalized by Audrey AI Program 1. For more entries, enter in your control panel. jwp.news/Avery. End of control.